I'm going to be here, so I want y'all to kind of be standing there. How's that? Does that work? Okay. Isoamyl acetate on your breath? No problem. Okay. Kind of what, just some stuff, basic beginner. We all were there once. This is a highway right here. Okay? So I never work a colony from the front. I always work a colony from the side. I don't like these runs because they get in my way. Each colony of mine is on an individual stand. People love these, I don't, because I don't like straddling it, and I'm constantly have to step over and it's awkward. So I prefer, I either have them on cinder blocks, on wood, whatever I've got basically, and that's how I prefer to work colonies. I never work a colony without wearing a veil. Once you get stung on the face or in the nose, you will never not work a colony without a veil. Your eyes are very important, obviously, so I really recommend, do not, I see people and they're out there without a veil on and stuff. It's not worth getting stung in the eye. You can go blind, okay? However, we sometimes work in short sleeves or shorts, depending, but I always have a veil. This color right here that you've got on, I would not recommend. Okay, or dark blue jeans. Everything else, khakis are nice. Obviously, a white suit. You want to be as invisible as possible. Any kind of contrasting colors, like you have that white suit on with the darker jeans, they're going to go for that where that contrast is. They're going to start stinging. This time of year is not a real critical time of year for the bees. I mean, there's still a nectar flow going on, at least here. It's waned there in my part of the country, in Georgia. And but as the nectar flow dwindles, their temperament increases. Okay, they become more defensive, and it'd be just like us. You know, if our pantry all of a sudden all we had was 4 cans of green beans, and we had to get through 4 months, we're going to fight for those green beans. Well, the same thing goes with these bees. They've got a limited amount of food that has to get them to the next nectar flow. All right. So right now, though, like I said, they're probably not going to be real aggressive. My dog chewed my my string. So let me wrap it around this way. Puppies and dogs love
eating your homework.
Yep, they love to get into that. What was I talking about?
Being aggressive.
Oh, being aggressive. So this time of year with the nectar flow, they're probably going to be, a little more calmer. When we get into August, September, October, their temperament can get a little more aggressive. Okay, and that doesn't mean they're Africanized, but it does mean that there's been a dearth. They've got to get through the next several months. All right, let's light a smoker.
I need a class just on that.
Okay, another thing I never do is go into a hive without a smoker. There is a movement that says, oh, don't use a smoker because the smoke is bad for the bees. It's actually more harmful for the bees to work them without smoke than it is with. Because what that smoke does is just diffusing that alarm pheromone. If you've got a bunch of really upset bees, they're going to be crawling more, you're going to be smushing them more, you're going to be crushing them more. So it's just easier for the colony and for the beekeeper if you just smoke them. Now, I'm going to show you, you don't have to puff the snot out of them, okay? But you do, that's what we say in Georgia. And he's filming this, great. But you do want to give them a little puff. Now, here's our smoker, all right? Fire is always on the bottom. Don't try to light it don't put your pine straw in there and light from the top. It needs to come from the bottom because there's where the air is entering into that chamber, okay? So, another thing you want to be careful of is to not burn yourself. And also, be very careful when you're lighting a smoker, especially if we're in a drought, you know, and there's a lot of dry foliage around, or leaves, or grass. I have caught a field on fire. Fortunately, I was able to put it out, but I have caught a field on fire. This pine straw is a little damp, but it'll work. Something I like to do, I always give everybody a little puff across the bough before I work them, especially the next colony. I like to give them a puff. What they're doing right now is they are sucking honey into their honey stomachs, so they're not going to be real flighty. And so that gives them a little more time in those two hives to do that. All right, so any questions about the smoker?
Do you need to put like a green material on top to keep it cool? I was told that before, like after you put in the stuff to get the fire going at the bottom, you can take leaves or other things to put on top.
You can put grass right here, absolutely, and you can feel the smoke. Right now this is not hot at all.
Okay.
But as that burns down, it's going to get hotter and hotter, and you can actually burn the bees. So if what we do, we have the tall smokers. We will pack them really tight just to keep the smoke cool.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Now, where's my assistant?
Right.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this lid off. And always put it in the front. Think of, and go ahead and flip it upside down. Think of your colony that the queen can be anywhere. I always put my equipment in the front. My lid, supers, I don't put them in the back, because if the queen is on there and somehow falls off, it's easier for her to crawl up into the entrance than to crawl into the back. And what happens a lot of times is what she might do is she might crawl in the back and then come up underneath. Every once in a while, if you find a colony queenless, but you're seeing a bunch of bees hanging underneath it, there's where your queen is. Sometimes when a queen flies out to make her mating flights and she flies back in, she misses the entrance and she goes in underneath, especially if you're using stream bottom boards. And they will actually start drawing comb and she'll start laying eggs underneath the hive. So every once in a while, if you see a ball of bees underneath it, check it. You might have a queen there. This is our inner cover. If you guys were at my lecture this morning, I don't use inner covers anymore. Nothing wrong with them, but I'm using, I'll just hold on for a second. I'm using the migratory lids with 2 holes so I can feed directly. And I don't have to come back, because what I used to do is I would have my feeding lids. I'd put the feeding lids on when they needed to be fed. Then I'd have to come back in the winter and put on their telescoping covers and their inner covers. And it's a lot of equipment, a lot of money, a lot of time. So this way it's just one time. Okay, feeder lid, 2 holes, migratory feeding lid. All right.
So do you not worry about having another entrance when you get them stacked up pretty high, or you just put a different entrance on?
I do one entrance, and I have colonies right now you can't even put, you have to get a step ladder to put a super on them.
Just with the bottom entrance, they do fine.
Whenever you, just something real quick, whenever you're putting stuff back on, like supers or inner cover, go corner to corner. Just put your fingers corner to corners to make sure that it's on. Does that make sense? Okay, so that it's not like this. So you just go corner to corner. That's a nice. Now we'll go ahead and take this super off. I always start from the bottom. Oops. Tore into that super there. We'll just put her right there. Well, you want to put it on the lid, don't you? Yeah, so we'll move the lid back. Right here.
A problem with the rocking?
I don't use those kind of lids. Those are a decorative lid, and so yes, they will have a problem. But with the migratory lids, you don't have that kind of issue. Okay. I have no idea what's going on in any of these colonies. So we're all going to kind of assess these together. One thing, if let's say I'm going to look for a queen. Okay, I want to see, I got to find the queen, I want to mark the queen, whatever, I just want to see the queen. If I'm working a hive alone, what I do is I will always start with the second frame in. I'm going to look at it. Then I'm going to push all of these away from the wall. Okay? Queens like to get on the wall. It's very difficult to pick up a queen, to have to, you know, if you're having to mark her and pick her up, if she's crawling along the wall. This way I've centered the brood, I've centered her hopefully in this area. If I'm working, if two of us are working, what we do is, you come around. Do you have another hive tool? No. You got a hive tool? Ah, there we go. Maybe we borrow this. Sure. So just something, if you're working in tangent with somebody, and you got to go through a lot of hives, just a little trick that we learned. Come in and follow me. So we're just going to, see, we're going to pull this frame. So put your hive tool there. We're going to go up, across, and we're popping them. These aren't sealed with propolis. Then you're going to hold that. I'm going to come back, and boom. Why are you skipping from? There were no bees on that one. Oh, and I needed to show it popping. Sorry. That's why that we were cracking between the two frames. All right, what do we have here? Bees and pollen. Any question about that? Got a little bit of nectar that they're putting in between. See the nectar? We got primarily bees and pollen. We got a little bit of capped honey on this end. Yep. All right.
Is the nectar what they turn into honey, or do they?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
Nectar, they'll dehydrate that into their honey. Okay. Everybody see this?
And we call that burnt biscuits.
Burnt biscuits. Why is that?
Because they about ready to come out. They're so brown. They get so brown.
Oh,
The
I
brood
see.
gets brown.
So the cat brood.
Yeah, it's burnt biscuits.
Now,
I mean, just sneak in. I just can't
So
see
when
it.
they get darker,
yeah, come on
they
around
will
here.
emerge.
Yeah.
You come around
they're
here.
about ready to have it.
All right. This colony doesn't look very good, does it?
Mm-hmm.
Spotty brood. Now there's something I'm seeing right off the bat that's telling me this colony is sick. What am I seeing?
Spotty brood?
No spotty brood, but what else? Yep. Where do you got deformed wing? Got one there.
Ooh, I'm gonna see
We've
that.
got one here. We've got one here. We've got one here.
What do you see?
Deformed wing.
Oh, I want to see.
We've got one here, and there's a mite on this bee
Oh, my.
crawling around.
Oh, yeah.
And see how small the bees are? They're smaller. This colony has viruses. This colony has probably a very high population of varroa, and so there's one right here.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, that's not one. Where'd she go? Where'd they go? Of course, they're all hiding there.
Is that right there?
There's one right there.
Here you go, right here.
Okay.
See her? See the wing?
Oh, yeah.
Let me look.
That's viruses right there. That's the deformed wing virus. DWV, a very common when you have varroa mites. Yeah, they probably all went to the other side.
And where's the one with the mite on it?
There's one right here.
That's a mite?
No, that's
Oh, the deformed wing.
wing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, see, look how tiny these bees are. Look at her. She's so tiny because she's sick. You know?
No, I'm fine.
So has everybody seen the deformed wing?
Oh, I did.
I showed you.
Everyone see? Now this girl right here, she's a newly emerged bee right here. This one. See how light colored she is?
I'm sorry.
That's a newly emerged. She's newly emerged. Their integument, their skin has not yet hardened, and so they're a little soft. They cannot sting you at that point when they're still a little soft like that. Another thing that's showing me that this colony has issues. See all of this open brood, and they're chewing it out. Because what they're doing, they know that there's mites in there, and so they're opening up that capping. They're ripping that capping off, and they're pulling either the whole pupa out or they're chewing it up and eating it.
Which one is
All right, so actually what I want y'all to do, I want y'all to pass, let's just make sure the mama's not on here. I want you to pass this frame around so that everybody can see and look inside the cells, because this is a classic example of varroa mite infestation. Okay, this colony is probably doomed. This colony probably cannot survive because it's at such a state. Remember when I was showing you that graph, it has probably reached the economic injury level. So this colony, if this was my colony, what I would do right now is I would treat it. The temperature is going to be in the 80s, so I'd probably treat it with thymol, Apolite var, or Apagard, which is a thymol-based miticide. Oxalic acid, again, because there's brood, I would not do oxalic acid, okay? Because even though it may show it works, I need something to knock these mites down quickly. And the thymol-based product does. There's also Apavar, which is an amitraz-based product. I don't like Apavar as much as I like Apalifevar, the thymol-based, because I prefer a softer chemical. And thymol is an essential oil. It is also CNG approved, certified naturally grown. So if you want to be natural, you use the thymol-based products as opposed to your amitraz, Coumaphos, fluvalinate. Okay?
How are they treated with that product?
How about formic? How are they?
How are they treated with the thymol?
It comes in a wafer. And well, there's two. The Apolite var is a wafer, and you break it up into 4 pieces and put it kind of around the brood chamber, around where the brood is located. The Apagar is a gel, and then you have like a little tin you can put in there, and the bees will get onto it, or it comes in a tub that you can, for like if you have more than a couple colonies, and then you can put that on, and you just put it on a cardboard piece of paper.
And do you have to do that with every super, or just one?
Usually just
Where
one.
you just find
You
the
want to
brood.
center it. We usually put it in the center. Like now, if this was say this tall and everything was here, I'd probably put it. You know, if this here's the cluster.
Sure.
I'm gonna try to put it in the middle of the cluster.
So you don't have to necessarily put it in, like over the brood chamber then?
You want it. I mean, I prefer to get it. You know, if this was a honey super, I'd be putting it here. But if I had a honey super here and I had brood here, I'd probably put it in between the two. All right, so I want y'all to pass this frame around, and again, look in those cells, because this is. I mean, it sucks. It's horrible for these poor girls. But you can see the deformed wing. You can see where they're chewing out. You can also see where the little bees have started to come out and they died. Yeah, see her tongue is sticking out. So she's died. You know, she was just too sick. She couldn't even get out of the cell. She. Okay, you got it. One. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Mitaway quick strips, formic acid. I have had mixed response with the formic. I know they've come out with a newer formulation. I have not yet tried that, but I've used it in the past, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And for me, I like the thymol. It's just, and y'all, as you get into this more and more and more, you're going to develop your own strategy of how you're going to do things. You might love formic. You might like thymol. You know, you might decide to do oxalic. You know, you might decide, hey, I'm going to be all natural and just do drone brood trapping and keep my mite levels down. You know, let me say something about all natural, since you brought it up.
With the high tool.
That's right. Let me tell you something. Okay, so when we talk about all natural beekeeping, and I want to be as natural as possible. I have a farm, I have animals, I have bees. I don't want to be out doing anything that's going to put toxins into the environment. But the problem with mites is we introduce the mites to the bees, okay? And their world now is very unnatural because of what we have done. So when we talk about being a natural beekeeper, I'm all for it. Let's be as natural as possible. But understand, we don't live in a natural world anymore, okay? And the world we've created for these bees is not natural as well. That's the sad part. So we have to do everything we can to keep them alive. When you bring these bees home and put them in your backyard, they need you for their survival. They may make it a couple years, they may make it 6 months, whatever, not have to have any, you won't have to intervene at all. But more likely at some point you are going to have to intervene. Just like when you bring home a dog from the pound or a cat, that animal needs you to help them to survive. Same thing's going on in this hive, especially now, as you can see.
Is there are we able to know which stages of the mite, the different, like you mentioned in your lecture, that some mite treatments only kill the mites that are outside the
Got it? There's a lot of deformity
brood
in there.
chamber. I'm not thinking
Right.
of the right terminology.
Almost the only thing that will actually kill mites under the cell capping, I believe, is only formic acid. I don't think Apivar amitraz does. I could be wrong, but I'm not 100% sure. Your thymol, your oxalic acids that I use will not penetrate that capping.
Right.
So you have to wait for those mites to be phoretic. They cannot be in the reproductive stage. So that is why I question oxalic acid as a vapor method for treating mites when brood is available. And this is why I'm going to put my sunglasses back on.
So that's also why
What is that? A sun?
that's why you would do the repeated treatments over time to try to break
Exactly.
the life cycle.
So let me explain that what he's talking about. When you have thymol in here, okay, it's constantly working for the 7 days. And then you're supposed to replace it again in 7 days 3 times, okay? Well, it's constantly there, so as the bees are emerging with those mites, it's being exposed to that thymol. The problem with oxalic acid, the vapor, it's a flash treatment. Okay, so it's boom, it's there for, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, I don't know the time. But it's a flash treatment. It does great at that moment, but it doesn't last. So then you come back 3 days or 7 days later, treat again, boom, it's a flash treatment, but it's not getting anything under the cappings. That's why I want to look at the data. I want to look at the
Where
numbers.
you got 7 days and there you got brood coming off.
Exactly, but I still have mites in the cell.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the problem,
That's
because
a
you're
good
not
point
getting,
about that.
so that's why I want to see this data on this research that that's been looked at to see, okay, we know we're dropping mites. Oxalic acid works great. We know we're dropping mites.
98%.
However, but what is the percentage? Do you know?
98, 97, and 98 if you don't have any brood in there.
And no brood, but
No
how much
brood.
have we got brood? What's our percentage of drop in?
Only percentage to what brood you got,
But that's the thing, and so that's the problem. That's why powder sugar didn't work when once brood is there, because it's even if we got 100% of 20%, we still got 80%. Okay, so it's all about numbers. We got to get those numbers down.
And is thymol one of the things you can do in the heat?
Now thank you. Okay, it's 80, so we could use thymol now. Once it starts getting into 90s, I think people like Bar, the product that Brushy Mountain sells, I believe it's 92.
And that's the ultimate high. You don't want
Right. Apigard says you can go to 100, 105 or whatever, but I really stop treatment once we're in the 90s on thymol, because they'll pull out the brood, and also too, the bees will sometimes abscond. They don't like it.
They don't like it.
So you're looking for 3 weeks in a row where you're going to have under 90 degrees.
Right, so that's why it's a good spring or fall. Right now, that's why I'm really hoping the oxalic acid vapor will work,
Right.
because boy, that would give us, I'm in July, I'm in Georgia, it's 98. I've got this situation right here. What am I going to use? Well, you got Apivar, the amitraz. You could put that in, because that will definitely kill mites.
Some of your bees too, right?
No, amitraz is pretty good.
Okay.
But you can
I
only
just
put
don't
it
like.
on
Go
you
ahead.
can't put it on a hive with the soup on it.
If you have any human consumable honey on that or in that colony, correct, you cannot. And same with oxalic acid. I'm not sure if formic acid. I'm not in honey production. I'm in bee production, so I'm not for sure about formic. If you could put formic on during, but I do know fluvalinate, coumaphos, amitraz, all of those thymol.
I've used formic acid about 5 years and had good results with it. Yeah, suppose I don't use it. I treat early spring, late fall. I don't want my temperatures out of the 70s. I use full tooth strips, never had any problem, but I have talked to people who've used it and they tell horror stories about running the bees out of the
You're talking
hive.
about the Mite Away Quick Strips.
Yeah, mile away quick strips. And what I like about it, 7 days is done. And I've had good results. And I use alcohol wash and I test before and after.
Oh, brilliant.
And I've had good results. But like I say, I've talked to people who have horror stories about it.
Well,
I like to keep it in the 70s.
Right.
Before.
Well, I've also talked to some beekeepers who say they only use 1 strip, and because the 2 strips is too much, and that also might be because of temperature.
Yeah.
You know, if it's higher temperature.
But the problem is in the summertime, you can't use it.
Right. That's why it's real important to, as those bees are coming now. If you're getting a nuke this year, like say you got your nuke in the spring, they should be fine until the fall. Okay, you should not be seeing this, and so you want to check that. But if your bees have overwintered, I would definitely start checking them in March, April, and looking at your numbers, and see what kind of numbers they're doing. If they look fine, let them go. But you know, you're going to monitor every once in a while. Another thing too, that when you do treat, monitor the mites afterwards as well to see if it did any good.
She was kind of a lighter color too.
And then
How soon after your treatment?
It's like it's more shriveled up.
7 days?
depends on what. Yeah.
Oh, the wing is?
Yeah.
So when your wax looks like that,
That was the
Oh,
one.
there's one. She don't even
This is
have
getting
one.
borderline.
I have a question for you. I've thought in my eye
Yeah.
before my waxes look like that, but it's also got some brood in it. Do you sort of cull the brood to replace the wax?
What you can do is put that brood on the outside, let it emerge out, and then
I've
just
seen it.
keep moving it to the outside. Not in the winter months, not when it's cold, or you'll get chilled brood.
I've been like late summer, I've gone in there and it's just looking so nasty. And even like it's starting to get holes on the side.
Yeah, I would move those to the outer edge, and then come winter, you can pull those unless they fill them with honey. If they fill with honey, let them get through the winter, and then pull them in the spring when they make a new comb, and you can add frames of foundation.
Okay.
I haven't seen any queen eggs or larvae yet.
To be honest, I wasn't even looking. I was looking at the.
So on that frame that you passed around, where you
There's the
we
queen.
could see some,
No,
That's
one's wrong.
where we could see some of that dead root, that's definitely from Varroa.
Yeah. No, this is definitely Varroa. Yeah, this is
I
Varroa.
mean, I was just
I
trying
mean,
to
this
think
is
of other
classic.
differentials.
Have you guys ever seen the drone Adiagus? I'll hand this to you. All right, so here's our drone. He's going to sacrifice his life to science.
Oh, merciful man, huh?
He is, but he's going out happy. I'm going to put pressure. He just pooed on me. He goes, take that. I'm putting a little pressure on his thorax. And then I'm going to touch his abdomen. This is what we do when for artificial insemination.
Is that still a popular thing? Artificial insemination?
It is. Okay, there's his claspers. You see that? And that's what he's going to grab the queen with.
I'll switch in here in a second.
See? Now. So he went out happy.
There you go.
He's like, yeah, it's a bronze.
And she's 29. 22. All right, now that, see the very end, that little ball, that is his sperm ball. See how clear it is? This drone was sexually immature. He was not ready to mate. The sperm was not viable.
Does that have anything to do with the health of the brood or the health
In
of
other
the
words,
bees?
she
Or is
killed
that
him
just
for a
Timing.
good
It's all
time.
timing.
What color is it if he's viable?
It would be creamy. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to see through it. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate you. All right, so has everybody seen deformed wing? Has everybody seen all the dead brood and the little sign? Okay, this is a sad but excellent example of varroa mites. Now I'm seeing no, that's the
No
queen
hive
cup.
beetles, though.
I'm not seeing any hive beetles, which is good. So at least we have that going for us. But now let's see if we have a queen. So let's go ahead and put the frames back in.
While you're looking for the queen, may I ask you a high beetle question?
Sure, high beetle question.
High beetle question. I was told, and I am trying the technique of putting asphalt shingles under your hive because when the larva falls through the screen bottom board, when they're trying to find a place to crawl and bury, they pretty much just shred themselves in the asphalt pile. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I know that my hive beetle issue this spring has not been anywhere like it's been in the past. That could be fluctuation in the hive beetle.
It could help, but here's the thing, small hive beetle larvae will crawl. And have you ever noticed how thick their skins are? Have you ever picked up a larva and felt it?
I only squished it.
I mean, that's even hard to squish with a hive tool. I mean, you'll just roll them back and forth and back and forth. And so diatomaceous earth and stuff like that, it's hard to cut them. Wax moths, on the other hand, their integument is much more delicate.
So
Okay.
maybe
We
the
put
shingles
rock-
would shred something that might fall through.
Yeah,
We put
Might
rock
be that it's hot.
rock salt might help desiccate them a bit.
larva when they go in.
But here's another trick that I like. Is every year or so, that's why I don't like these stands. I'm gonna move my hive over just enough to expose that ground that has been nice and dark, and all that debris has been falling, and all that rich, compostable, yummy, soil is right underneath. And so I now have just exposed it to what? UV. And then I'm gonna scratch it, and all those developing pupa in there are gonna die. And so you can do that periodically as well. Do that, once a year. Just move it back and forth.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You just okay. I'm gonna move it here this year. Move it back that year. Move it here. All right. Any more frames, and I'll go ahead.
Is there anything that you could observe if you had a catch tray, if you will, below the hive, so that you could see what was coming out? Is that of any
You
value?
can, and those. There's a lot of traps that you can buy. That's what they're made for. You put oil down there, and it'll collect your small hive beetles. And also you'll see mites. Those are the main two things you're worried about. You might see some wax moth larvae as well. I don't like those trays because I forget they're in there, and then I'm picking up a hive and moving it, and I'm sloshing oil all over myself.
What about if it's separate from the hive, like a catch
It can be,
basin?
yeah, and you can pick it up exactly.
A catch basin below the
Oh,
board
underneath.
there.
Well,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
might be catching other things too.
Okay.
Beneficial stuff or bees. I tell you, another thing I don't like about the traps, bees inevitably will find a way to get in, and then you pull the trap out and you've got 10,000 dead bees in that trap. So be really careful if you're using those. I can't remember the name. The bottom traps. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank on their name. If I use a trap in a colony, I'm going to take that frame, guys. Oh, you almost done? I just want to.
No,
We were looking for a mite.
No, that's fine.
Oh, I'll find you.
We had a magnifying glass just trying to.
It's interesting. We're not seeing them crawling around. Usually by this point, I did see that one mite on that bee. But I just want to go upstairs. I want to see if there's a queen. I'm not seeing any evidence. There's there's a 5-day-old larva there.
So what's this one?
Did you see eggs?
No, I didn't see an egg. I just seen that.
Yeah, that was only.
Now, if you're using a drone frame, you scout, you scrape everything off.
I do.
Okay.
What I'll do is, sorry girls. Dang it. I'm sorry.
That's the worst sound ever.
Well, I just killed. They must have been balled up underneath, and I didn't notice that. All right, let's get a little smoke. Again, I'm going to always put stuff in the front. You want to fill me up with a little more pine. Yeah. There you go. All right, I do see some capped honey up here. Now, if I'm looking for the queen, what did I just do wrong?
Sit it down without
Push
looking
the-
for it on it. But she's not really
Well,
rolling.
that's one, but what's something else that I just did?
Frame against the wall.
You didn't set it in front?
I just put this box on top of this box so she could run from this box down to this box. Okay? which she's probably doing right now if there is a queen in here, because what do queens not like? Light. Okay, so she's probably, if there is a queen in here, she's probably already gone downstairs, but we're gonna...
She was right down there.
Yeah, I think we have a queen in here. Yeah, we got a queen in here. Boy, these girls are sick though.
Did they notice Hive had a problem already?
I'm sure they did. That's why they gave it to us. Y'all want to look at that. Another thing too, if you are looking for a queen, try not to walk far from the hive, because if she falls off, you know, and a lot of times I'm like looking to see if there's eggs, and you know, it's like, oh, I don't have enough sun, but the sun's right there because I'm in the shade, and I'll walk over and look. Be careful, because she could drop off, especially when, you know, she's new, they get flighty, or she's, you know, she's so full of eggs, she falls off, and then now she's over there, and she's gonna have a real hard time getting back into the hive, and you just lost your $40 queen. Or a $500 queen if you bought a breeder queen. Okay, guys, any questions about what we're talking about? This is with Varroa. We're going to go on to the other colony. Anything at all?
What is the danger of having hive like this with Varroa so infested next to normal healthy hive?
No, as this colony crashes, the healthy bees with the mites are going to be going, they're going to be drifting over there. So we call those Varroa bombs. And basically, you know, you have a colony that has very few mites in them, and since this colony has 1,000 mites or whatever, they're going, basically this colony could be inundated overnight. You do a powder sugar shake or a sticky screen, and you notice, you know, you've got 3 mites on a sticky screen, or 10 mites on a sticky screen, or whatever. And then, you know, so you think it's fine. A month later, that colony crashes, and you're like, wait a minute, I just did a sticky screen, because this colony crashed and all the mites went next door. Okay, so yes, that's why for years we used to say, check each individual colony, only treat the colonies that have reached the economic threshold. However, we're changing our whole thought process now and saying, well, maybe what we should be doing is looking at the apiary as a superorganism as opposed to just the single hive.
How are the mites moving?
They have little wings.
They will fly. They will fly.
Little angel wings.
I know they're bad about other bees.
I'm kidding.
No, I know the bees go in the hive.
They're hitchhikers.
And
Exactly
I see
it. Yes, they are.
I see it.
Now this might actually be sourwood right here. Let me taste and see. Because I saw it's just starting to open up. Looks a little too clear though for it. No, it's not.
Oh.
No, but that is good. It's all mine too. But I did see sourwood is blooming, and so wow, that's good.
Really good.
Very tutti frutti, isn't it? All right, let me have that other frame, and we'll move on to another hive. Did you see mites? No, but we saw a lot of signs of mites. So we know we don't have to see mites necessarily. Well, that's always want to center your brood, keep your brood together.
So the cells that are poked out of are those drone cells? The ones that were bulbous?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're a little bit bigger. A lot of times what I'll do is I will bounce the inner covers, again, corner to corner. Okay, and then your lid. Awesome.
With your migratory lid that you like to use, when you're not feeding, you just leave the empty jars?
When I'm, okay, that's good, thank you. When I am not feeding, I'm just using solid caps, and I'm replacing those, putting, you know, caps, solid caps in.
Oh, okay.
It needs to be lit, there's no fire.
Say hello.
Yeah, a little bit, but.
Tyler doing?
That could be a class.
He helped me all day yesterday.
Hive crashes, and mice end up in another hive and take over. When the hive crashes, are the bees moving that much to another hive?
For the first level,
They can be, yeah.
I know there were 3 of them, I know how you can get mice in another hive. But if you have one that crashes, and all of a sudden you got a hive full of them.
Drones can go in
Yeah, drones go in. I know the migrating. Like when one crashes and they take over a hive.
A lot of times bees, they have nectar.
You got a bunch out here in the middle, there's more bees in them middle 2 hives or something than that.
I didn't know if you get that thing on Facebook.
One thing that I am very fortunate to have is, I don't think there's anything. One thing I'm fortunate to have in my part of Georgia is the pine needle, long pine needle. Much better. I don't like burlap. I don't like all that other stuff. Pellets, any of that. So if you can get hold of pine straw, that'd be awesome. Okay? All right, so let's just check in here and see what we've got going.
I've known Frank for years. He was Cassie's dad in that kind of mirror.
Yeah, it's hard to see anybody.
Okay, nothing there. No queen. Always kind of look at the lid just to make sure Mama's not on there. They got a little bit of nectar, not much. I see brood. Now when I'm doing a colony assessment, I don't necessarily go through every single frame. I'll check the outer frame to make sure there's honey, or upstairs in the super. Then when I get to the brood, I got cap brood, okay? But I also want to look for eggs. Oh my, what we have here. No, I don't need that. I'm thinking we have wax moths because, well, they look like they're tethered in the cell. They're not able to get out. Yep, see? All right, look here, guys and gals. Sorry. Look at this frame and see how all these bees, they've got the cappings open, but look, they're all struggling. They can't get out. And why is that? Because the wax moths are underneath tunneling and their webbing is keeping them attached. See the webbing on that bee? So I hate seeing this. So yep. And they'll basically just starve in place because eventually the worker bees are going to ignore them.
Never seen that before.
Yep, that's called tethered. They are tethered in that cell.
You ever seen that?
Really? Something's going on. If there's wax moths in a colony, they probably have mites as well. But see the webbing? Exactly.
Need to find that daggone worm in there and dig her out.
So you noticed that because
She's
they were
in there somewhere.
struggling to get out of
Yep.
their cells.
so the wax moths would simply be in there because the hive is weak. Then?
There's something else going on, exactly. Yeah, because they don't let, see her, she's all tethered. But that is not normal.
You see?
All right, girls, 2 more. I'm not seeing that worm usually. Start pulling it out, you'll see that wax moth jumping out.
Is it the larva of the wax moth that's been born?
Yes. Oh, thank you. I see all the webbing there.
If you help those bees out, maybe okay.
They may be, you know. see, well, this colony right here, I'm going to investigate. We're going to look a little bit more. And, sorry, I just can't see him sitting there. Help me. All right, now they're gonna probably fall down, so I'm just gonna put this frame back in. Now we're gonna look and see what's going on, because that should not be happening. Okay, see how tiny, look at how few bees. Ooh, look at what we have there. Where's the see, Mama? Wow.
She's a crow and she's running.
Now, when you want to pick up a queen, I always usually put my hand or my finger on her thorax and wrap my fingers around and pick her up. But you always pick her up by the thorax. You do not pick her up by the abdomen, okay? And very gentle. Okay? So you just, and the way you practice, pick up your drones. Okay? Come here, Mr. Drone. Pick him up.
Don't do that again, please.
Do what?
Don't do that thing again.
All the guys always go.
She's trying to get back up.
Oh my, look at you. Come here, you. See, she's crawling away. Get back up. Yep. So this colony here, if this was my colony, I would probably pinch this queen. Sorry, I would kiss her first. Tell her she's been doing great. And then I would take these bees and this brood, and I'd put a thing of newspaper right here, and I would just take the whole box and put it on top, and I would put a slight slit, sorry, I'm sweating, a slight slit in the newspaper, and then just let them figure it out.
So why that queen and not the other queen?
Well, I'm sorry, that hive would have to be a good hive as well.
Okay,
Sorry,
I'm just curious.
good point.
How are you choosing? The lesser of whatever.
Since these girls have mites though, I would treat them first before I would move them.
But you wouldn't move this
And-
brood if it's got the wax moths. Or
Yeah, I would, because that strong colony will clean it
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yeah,
So
yep.
a strong colony will get rid of moths.
They'll cut them out.
Yeah, they'll have those girls chewed out. They'll have, or guys, whatever.
And you're saying put the newspaper in between the
Exactly.
the
So
super.
you're just going to lay a piece of newspaper across. And you're going to take your hive tool and just make a couple little slits, and then just put that box directly on. You don't need to spray them. I mean, you can. I don't. You know, usually I'm I don't have the time. Okay, so I'm thinking this is a failing queen. Yeah, now since she had a number on her, I'm going to ask Shane, but she might have been a breeder queen.
She was a breeder queen.
Oh, she was?
I bet she was.
And the problem with breeder queens are they're usually artificially inseminated. Artificially inseminated is where we would have collected the semen off of that, the drone. We put it in a syringe. We take a virgin queen. We gas her with CO2. And then we inseminate her with drones from colonies that we've selected from. She doesn't get to go out and make her own choices. Where the government makes a choice for her.
And then you're racist. Not allowed in college campuses these days.
But the thing is with breeder queens, I can select for a trait. I'm getting there very quickly. And so, like hygienic behavior, for instance, or resistance or tolerance, I can get to that trait. She's not a production queen, is she? She's not a very, but I can graft from her. I can still graft from this queen, even though she's not good at all. I can still get 12 to 24-hour larvae from her and graft. And use her genetics to make another queen. But if this was not a breeder queen, I'm just going to pinch her. Now, if this was a breeder queen and this colony was in this shape, and I needed to hold on to this colony, or hold on to that queen, I would take emerging brood that's chewing its way out right now. Emerging brood from other colonies, because it's nice and warm. You wouldn't do this, you wouldn't give them a lot of emerging brood if it's too cold, because they can't keep it warm. There's enough bees in here to keep it warm. But what I would do is probably take 10 minutes. Great. 2 or 3 frames of emerging brood and add 2 or 3 frames, come back in a day or two and add another 2 or 3 frames of emerging brood to beef up this population. Does that make sense? Excellent. All right.
So the conclusion is the main problem was poor queen, and that's why we end up having all
In
that.
this colony, correct. Now, I'm not seeing any kind of like other kind of disease, like European foul brood, American foul brood, anything like that. Let's look at this real quick. If we were to let this colony keep going here, I would say within a month this colony would be dead. And this is what you would open up and find. This is wax moths. You want to pass? Yeah, been there, done that. Been there, got what is it? Been there, got the sheet T-shirt to prove it. Now watch this, y'all. And look how they embed into the wood.
Yep, they'll eat holes in it.
Yep, yeah, they will. They'll go right through it. Look at this. Y'all see that?
How long has that been like that?
I don't know, but this could happen. There's a wax moth.
Oh, yeah.
There's the wax moth right there.
And their larva is bigger than the high beetle larva, correct?
It can be, but don't they? Can, it can also not be. Okay, depending on what wax moth it is.
Yeah, there's 2 types.
You need right. There's the greater and the lesser. So, for the determine between a wax moth larva and a small hive beetle, they're the same size, same color. What are you going to do? What are you looking for?
Like the high beetle larva is tougher?
Could be, but something real obvious. An entomologist would know this.
Bees being stuck in the cells because how many legs it has?
There you go.
Ah, that's good. You win the prize. Where's the mom?
Caterpillars are going to have legs all the way down on them. Okay. Whereas the small hive beetle only have 3 pairs. They only have 6 legs in the very front. So here's their head, and you have segment, 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 leg, leg, leg. Okay. Caterpillars have legs all the way down. So that's how you determine. Good job. You get yes. You get
Is
the
the
gold
moth
star.
still in there?
I'm sorry.
Is the moth?
She might have flown off.
Probably more than one.
Well, here's one. The dried desiccated one. Now that's a bigger one.
Oh, I see it.
There's one. Yeah, there's one right there. All right. All right, guys. Any questions?
I wonder if they left this laying out here for us just
They
to look
did.
at, or
They did.
because that's the worst thing anybody can do is these rats and stuff like that in the yard.
Yeah. Now,
That's a moth
if you're
nutcase.
exactly, if your colony, that's what I was saying too. Like, if you have a colony that's weak, go ahead and combine it. Don't try to look because you're going to open it up and that's what you're going to find. Or it's going to be slimed with small hive beetle, and you saw the pictures.
Oh,
And you can smell that when you walk into the apiary. I mean, it is nasty. So if your colony is weak, or if like this colony here on the end will probably be in this state within a month or 2 as well. Okay, because you saw the population was crashing over there. Okay, so they're not going to last long as well. So I would combine them. Now, if you have wax moth damage, you can just go ahead and scrape it out. If it's on plastic foundation, I would just pop that foundation out and throw it away. But if it's still in good shape, they just started, you could just scrape it off. You too can put them in the sun. Just make like an A-frame and face that larva, those wax moths into the sun. That'll kill them as well. Or they'll crawl. You'll see them crawling out. And then I would never put a whole box of frames that have been either slimed by beetles or have wax moths onto one colony. I will distribute it evenly across the apiary because there may still be a lot of eggs. More so with small hive beetles than with wax moths. But like say this, this colony here was starting to get slimed with small hive beetles, and I threw it onto this colony. That they may not be able to take care of it and get them all cleaned up before they slime this colony. Okay.
Can freeze them can you freeze that too to frame them full, or is that not worthwhile?
You can freeze them. It's just so much easier to put them in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we used to put them in buckets of water, in the freezer, and finally we had such a horrible small hive beetle problem years ago because before we we got to just do the full sun.
Right.
And our freezers were full at the lab. I mean, chock full with Frank. And here, my boss shows up one day like, what's going on? Don't look in there.
Scientific experiment.
Yeah, scientific experiment. We got a test going.
Do you need a placed on both sides of the frame?
Yeah, and so, right, so you're going to do it like this for 10, 15 minutes,
Okay.
and then flip them, and then just kind of move them over, because a lot of times they'll drop and try to get into the shade. So, it's a horrible way to die, I know, but...
Wait, can you do that with the bees on it?
No, okay, say if I come across this colony here, and it's slime, and there's still bees, I'm just going to shake the bees into this
Okay.
colony here, and then just A-frame
Okay.
those frames, and then distribute after an hour or so, just distribute them into the apiary.
Okay. And how about things like the deformed wing virus and other viruses? If you just treat for the varroa and get that under control, will that take care of the viruses?
Now the ones
Or
that
is
already have the virus are going to die.
Right.
It's not going to cure the virus, but it's curing. What you're doing is when that mite feeds, it's triggering that virus to turn on. Okay, it's there in the hive already, but it's just triggering it to. You start seeing symptoms like the deformed wing. So yes, if you control your mites, you're controlling your viruses as well.
When I go into my hive, I've noticed 2 to 3 hive beetles at the top running around. Maybe every other time I go in.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
Just take your hive tool.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. Seriously, the only time I really get concerned is when I start seeing, you know, like if I pull an outer frame, and that outer frame will have a couple of hundred on them. And there's something that I will do is I'll take the lid and I'll bounce that frame and then have a crunch party with your hive tool. Yes, that's what we call it. It's a technical term. But anyway, yeah, you'll just sit there because you want to get those numbers down. And there might have been an issue. The colony had been queenless for a while. A lot of times, again, small hive beetles, we used to say for years, oh, if they're strong, they're queen right, they'll be fine. But that's not always the case, especially if your colonies are in full shade. They have a real hard time. And that's why you really got to provide as much sun as possible. But if a colony is, now when I mean strong, I don't mean like, you know, strong with, you know, thousands of bees, but it's a healthy, strong colony when itself, it's got a good queen, you know, the population's good, we don't have a lot of mite issues, there's nothing else going on. Then usually beetles don't have a chance in that situation. But once something else, you know, their attention's turned onto something else, that's when the beetles slip in, start doing their damage. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you guys, and you've got Shane and the honey extraction, and yeah, that's the other two. So yeah, so
I do
enjoy.
have one other question separate
Sure.
from pest management. A friend of mine told me to remove any honey I find in the brood box. He said you don't want honey in there. But I've read where, I don't know. That's just what he told me. But he's had them as long as I have, which is a couple months.
Honey, anywhere you can get it.
Yeah.
It's okay to have honey in your brood box.
I've got it on the outside.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Pest and Disease Management work demo with Jennifer Berry here at our North Carolina Field Day. If you happen to still be around about 3:30, we will also be trying to broadcast Shane Gebauer, our president's demo on splitting a hive. And if it hasn't been published already, also at 3:30 we'll be doing a harvest extracting demo. I hope to see you guys then. Bye.